I'm going to be talking about nbconvert, which is our toolchain for converting Jupyter Notebooks into other things, other file formats. So I'm Thomas Kluyver. I'm based at the University of Southampton, and I'm kind of the UK wing of the Jupyter and IPython project. So the other person that we have at the conference, or the other people, are Min, who's based in Oslo, Norway, and Sylvain, who isn't here today, but he's based in New York. So before I get into nbconvert, this is something that we try to reiterate at every conference because it's a message that we feel we're not doing a very good job of getting across so far. This is what the distinction between Jupyter and IPython is, so people still seem to use the terms pretty much interchangeably. So it all was IPython up until and including version 3, and then we renamed large parts of the project to Jupyter, and the rule is that everything that can work with other languages, so all of the notebook, the protocol that it talks to like send code to the kernel and things, and a lot of the higher level projects like Jupyter Hub that Min gave a tutorial on at the on Friday, that's all language agnostic. That all goes under the Jupyter name, and then IPython is the Python-specific interactive tools. So a big chunk of that is the Python kernel for Jupyter. So when you're running Python code in a notebook, it is a Jupyter notebook with an IPython kernel, and then IPython is also has its own like terminal interface. So when you just type IPython in a terminal and you have the like in prompt in your terminal, that's IPython. So hopefully that's all clear. So back to nbconvert, which is what I'm officially here to talk about.
Sorry,
yes.
just on that last slide, what was the percent magic in the installation?
That's something I could give an entire talk about, but these are special like convenience syntaxes within IPython. So if you do, you can run any system command by starting it with an exclamation mark, and we have a set of these like magic commands, we call them, which are just like convenient functions that run. They're like shell style commands, and they start with a %. So yeah, there's information on the internet more about that, because I could go into those for the entire talk. So nbconvert is a kind of a set of tools that turn notebooks into other formats, and there are three main pieces to the nbconvert toolchain. So you start with a notebook file or a notebook object in memory. That goes through preprocessors, which are pretty much just functions that act on the notebook and return a modified version of the notebook. Exporters are what actually turn that notebook object into some other format, whether that's HTML or LaTeX or restructured text. And then post-processors are additional functions that act on the exported file after it's been converted. Those don't get used much anymore. Originally, when you created a PDF, it was a LaTeX exporter and then a PDF post-processor that ran LaTeX. Now we've made it so it's a PDF exporter that includes running LaTeX. And so actually there's one remaining post-processor, and it's the one I'm running right now, which is the slide serving post-processor. So there's some bits of reveal.js that don't work properly when you load it from a file URL. So we have a little HTTP server to render slides like this. So you can use nbconvert in a variety of different ways. Probably the most common way is nbconvert at the command line. So you run Jupyter nbconvert, and then there's a whole set of options. So --2 slides uses the slides exporter, and this is if you run this inside this Git repository, the link will be at the end of the presentation again, then it creates the presentation that I'm presenting from. But you can also use it as part of a pipeline, so it can read a notebook from standard in and produce something to standard out. So in this example, I've used it with the -- execute flag. So that's one of the preprocessors built into nbconvert, allows it to execute a notebook before rendering it, so you can ensure that it's up to date at the point when you rendered it. And just an aside, because someone was mentioning to me the other day that they had upgraded their notebook and then they'd sent their supervisor a notebook, and their supervisor had said, "What? I can't update this, and I can't open this, and I'm not going to update my packages." So if you find yourself in that situation, then this command will downgrade your notebook to NB format version 3, and that works for like converting between any different versions of the notebook format. So toNotebook is one of the exporters. Yes, I can see the person who had that problem just taking a picture of the command to. So yes, that can upgrade and downgrade between all the versions of the notebook format. In practice, if you want to go back to a version older than version 3 at this point, then there's probably some bigger problem that you need to solve. It's also, so like most of the stuff we do, nbconvert itself is written in Python, and you can use it as a Python API. So it's a bit more involved than the command line interface. But here you can see I'm loading a restructuredText exporter. Then I'm using the nbformat package, which is a separate package for reading and writing notebook files, to load this notebook, and then I'm using the restructuredText exporter, and that it gives me a string of restructured text, and then you can carry on to do whatever you like with that in the notebook, or from your Python code. So I have an example notebook here for a side project that I have called nbparameterize. So you can see it's doing some kind of like simple stock market calculation. It's going to draw a plot, and the first cell, crucially here, has just plain declarations. So name equals and a value, and nbparameterize looks for that first code cell and extracts those assignments out and turns them into parameters that you can, so it lets you replace those values and then rerun the notebook with the new values. So I have a little web app demo. So this has looked at the notebook. I haven't hard coded this form. It's, oh, what's going on? I haven't hard-coded these parameters into this web app. It's looking at the notebook and generating this form from the notebook. So we're here in Bloomberg. Somebody shout out a stock symbol. What do you know the? Okay, Goog. I happen to know that one. So that has just executed the notebook, and then it's used nbconvert in nbparameterize to render it to HTML and serve it to me. So that's just one example of what you can do when you have nbconvert as a Python interface. And just to give a shout out to another example, nbsphinx is a tool that's not part of our, not something that we work on. It's something that we actually use in some of our docs, but it's written by Matthias Geyer, I believe. And So this lets you just have a folder of IPyNB files in your sort of Sphinx source tree, and you can put them into an index as you would with a restructured text file, and NB Sphinx will load those and render them as part of a Sphinx template. And so this is an example that's on Read the Docs, and it hasn't come out very clearly because of the way that the resolution has changed, but this is in fact part of a set of Sphinx documentation, so it has all of the like Sphinx sidebar and table of contents and everything integrated with notebooks, so it makes it that much easier to write docs. And yeah, this is a really neat tool, and nbconvert's own docs are using this. And oh, that was because I didn't have the internet running when I loaded the web server. But this is something that I expect you've all seen. nbconvert is a web service, so nbviewer is a site that you can go to and you give it a URL to a notebook file, and it serves you a rendered HTML version of that. That, you know, it's static. You can't edit this or anything, but it's a super easy way to publish a notebook, and then you have it. So this is one of Peter Norvig's fascinating sort of Python explorations of a puzzle, and this was the New Year's puzzle, where you have to fill in the operators in this mathematical expression. So this is, yeah, nbviewer is a web service that runs nbconvert to HTML for you, and we are also looking at the possibility of making like nbviewer to PDF, because getting all of the LaTeX stuff that you need installed to convert things to PDF is a bit of a challenge on some systems. So if we could provide that as a web service, and all the machinery is there, it just hasn't been done as yet. Okay, so I'm getting to kind of actually what the title of the talk said this is, which is customizing nbconvert. So how can you make nbconvert do what you want specifically, rather than just using what it already has? So most of our nbconvert output is built from templates. So when I convert something to restructured text, there is a built-in restructured text template. And this uses the standard Jinja templating package, which is widely used for like Python web apps and things. And we have a template, this kind of template structure made up of blocks. And the cool thing about Jinja templates is they allow template inheritance. So you can define a template that inherits from one of our templates and override one of these blocks. Within the block, you have a super method. So it looks something like this. So this says we're inheriting from full.tpl, which is our full HTML template. And then we're going to override the markdown cell block and wrap whatever it would normally be in a div with some style. So this is kind of our trivial example that we call the make it pop template, and that will just give any markdown cell a glowing background. So it's very easy with, you're reusing all of the templates that are already in nbconvert and all of the structure here. And you're just sort of adding one little bit of override to change what that's doing. Possibly a more practical example is another extension of the HTML template. So this is a bit more complicated. So it has some CSS. I think in this case, because of the template structure, I had to copy and paste some of the stuff that was already in the template. You can see we're adding a little bit of JavaScript. And then we're doing some stuff down here with a code cell. Oh, sorry, that's a bit small. And the result of that is that if you convert a notebook to HTML with this template, then the code cells are initially invisible, apart from the first one. I think that's a bug. Bugs happen. And then you can click this, and you can hide and show any of the cells. So the ability to generate output without the code visible is something that we're asked for quite a lot. And this template gives you the ability to do that. And if you don't want these expand the code buttons, then it's even simpler, because you can just say, like, this is the code cell block, don't put anything in it. So another thing that Jinja templates have are filters. So when in these double brace bits, you put sort of some Python code, more or less, that evaluates to the stuff you want to put into the template at that point. And Jinja has this syntax for kind of like passing the text or the values through a pipeline of filters before it comes into the template. So nbconvert itself defines several of these filters. Jinja also has a few built in. So these are basically just Python functions that are going to take something in, return something, the return value gets passed on to the next filter in the template. And if you make a custom exporter, which I'll come on to in a bit, then you also have the ability to add additional filters of your own. So that gives you extra power to do things in templates. So the first one is from the restructuredText template. So that's taking some LaTeX output, stripping off any $signs at the beginning or the end, which are sometimes used to sort of demark that something is LaTeX, and then indenting it all by, I think the default is 4 spaces. And the bottom one is from the HTML template, and we integrate, nbconvert integrates pigments, the Python syntax highlighting library, to do syntax highlighting of your code. So this is what makes sure that the code is syntax highlighted when you convert to HTML. You can also do clever things in the template using metadata. So inside any block related to a cell, you have a cell variable that you can use in the Jinja code, and you can use cell.metadata to get at the metadata that's associated with the cell, which is just like a JSON dictionary, and you can do things conditionally based on that metadata. So the slide template actually is, oh, sorry, I seem to do that a lot. Okay, good. I'll try not to do it again. The slide template is a good example of this. So when you create a slideshow using a notebook, you use these little drop-down menus here to select like where a new slide is going to start, which bits are going to sort of initially be invisible and then appear on the slide as you press a button. And the slide, these get stored in, these values are stored in cell metadata, and then the slides exporter and the slide template use them to cut it up into slides. So I also just had this example to mention. This is from the LaTeX template, and the sharp-eyed of you will have noticed that it's using a different kind of syntax to the other examples I had before. So these all use this curly bracket syntax, which is the default Jinja template syntax. In LaTeX, curly braces are already significant, so if they were relevant for the template as well, then you'd spend forever like escaping curly braces everywhere, and it would be a horrible mess. So we tweak. Jinja has options to specify the template syntax. So the LaTeX templates are all based around these parentheses rather than curly braces. So stepping up to exporters. So exporters are more powerful than templates, so there's strictly more things you can do with an exporter, and template exporter is one subclass of the main exporter class. So it is an exporter that controls like setting up Jinja, loading the template, providing the filters, and filling it in. So there are several cases where you might want to do this. Is it still working? So yeah, the notebook exporter that I showed for like converting between versions of notebooks and things, that doesn't use a template. That uses our NB format library to write a notebook file directly. PDF exporter, actually subclasses, we're back, excellent, thanks. PDF exporter subclass is the LaTeX exporter, so it is using a template to create the LaTeX, but then it's also running the PDF LaTeX command on that LaTeX file to generate the PDF. And you could have another PDF exporter that could use something like Report Lab to go directly to a PDF, or it could generate HTML and then run like a headless browser or something to print that to a PDF. So if you want to define your own exporter, then this is the basis of what you have to do. You subclass from nbconvert.exporter, and you define the output MIME type, the default file extension that you want the files it produces to have, and then this from notebook node method that takes a notebook object and resources is a dictionary. Don't worry too much about resources for the moment, but if you get into doing this a lot, then you'll probably find uses for it, and it returns the output and the modified resources if necessary. The resources can include things like external files that it refers to. So if you have like images, then not all formats can have images in line, so it may have to have them as separate components. So then, how do you actually use your custom exporter and deliver it to other people? So you can use an import path on the command line. So you can say nbconvert --2 and then the name of your module dot the name of your class, and it will go, in this case, from tpl lib import my exporter, and it will use that as the exporter class. You can also use setup tools entry points, aka the one nice thing about setup tools, which it's this mechanism that kind of allows you to specify plugins for Python systems. So you can tell it when you package your code up to put it on PyPI, you can give it some information saying like my code defines an nbconvert exporter, and you give it a name, and then similarly in this case it's module name : class name, and then that allows people to use this shorthand syntax. So this name matches up to this name here. And yeah, that's me, just about half an hour. Thank you. Any questions?
So just as somebody who's never done this before, do I do everything within the environment of the notebook, or do I have to give that bash command that you mentioned in the beginning? In order to just set up, I just don't
So normally nbconvert, like I'm giving these examples mostly for using it at the command line. So you install nbconvert. So if you've got the notebook installed, you have nbconvert as part of that. Actually, you can use it from the notebook in the file menu. There's a download as option that's using nbconvert. And yeah, other than that, it's just sort of the extensions I was talking about are like writing a Python module, so a .py file, and putting that somewhere that it can be imported.
I want to say, yeah, because I use this for the first time for my talk, so thanks very much for this. It all works fine. The only thing that I had some difficulties was when I was inserting some images into some of the markdown files. Now I was using the markdown notation, sometimes I use the HTML notation, and what I found was that sometimes it was like rendering, if the image was a PDF, it was working in one browser, it was working in another browser. I just wondered, because I mean, I don't know about that sort of webby stuff, and when I tried to convert it to PDF, I found that everything was fine, and then there'd be bits where these images wouldn't have loaded in. I'm just wondering if you had any advice on something I was doing wrong there.
So for converting to PDF, I think, so for turning markdown cells into PDF, we use a tool called Pandoc, which is actually like an external program. It's written in Haskell of all the things. And I think that will definitely be able to handle the markdown image notation.
Yeah,
I don't.
was the HTML one.
Yeah, it may not be able to do that.
But I wasn't able to resize the images with the markdown one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing that you could do, I guess, is you could display the images as the result of a Python cell, and then you can, when you display an image object from IPython, you can set like width and height parameters,
Right, okay.
and I'm pretty sure that that should be exported to PDF okay, but then you will have an extra code cell. But you could come up with a template trick with some cell metadata or something to hide that.
Somewhat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your stock price example, and you said you can parameterize notebooks and
Mm-hmm.
then run them programmatically using those parameters from Python with the nbconvert interface. Could you explain a little bit more about how that really works?
Sure. So that was this one, yes. So nbparameterize is a package that you can pip install. I fully agree that it has a horrible name. Suggestions for better names are welcome. And the package itself is actually pretty simple. It goes through and looks for the first code cell, and then it has, in principle, it has like backends for different languages. In practice, the only one that's implemented yet is Python. But it, depending on the notebook metadata, it will pick an appropriate backend and ask the backend to parse that cell, and it turns it into a series of structured objects that say, name, value, type, and so it has, two steps. Retrieve parameters from notebook, fill in modified parameters to notebook, and then this demo wraps it into a little web app. So it retrieves the parameters, generates this HTML form, and then you pick the values, and when you press go, it returns those values to the structured objects that nbparameterize created for you, and asks nbparameterize to put them back into the notebook, and then you have a notebook object, and it passes that to nbconvert and says, turn this into HTML for me, and it executes it first.
Did you attach your own CSS to this page?
Yes. So when you nbconvert to HTML, we have two templates that you can use. Basic is like just the HTML structure for a rendered notebook, without any of the kind of page stuff like CSS and the head section. And full is the template that actually renders a full HTML page.
So thanks for this. This is great. I use this for my presentation, and I discovered that so for the 2 slides, when I convert notebook into slides, everything depends on reveal.js.
Yes.
Is there any way that one can override the reveal.js in some way? Because, for example, my issue was to scroll down in the slide. That's not possible. And tonight, last night, I discovered at some point that there was one line to comment out, to allow that.
Yes. Please, please come and find me later so that we can work out what's going on with that and how to get it fixed. But yes, so the reveal, where it loads reveal, is part of the template, part of the slides template, and yeah, you can totally take that template and override bits of it. I don't know that there's a specific block that you can override, like just the reveal section, so you might have to copy and paste some stuff. But yeah.
Just going back to the parameter example, if obviously running this online from Git doesn't work because it's on localhost, but if I download the notebook, is there anything else that I need after I've got notebook installed and this example notebook? Will it just work?
So you need nbparameterize, so that's a separate project on GitHub.
Yep.
So you can pip install the nbparameterize tool, and then this is in the examples directory, and it's called web app. So you run webapp.py, and then you give it the name of a notebook. So this stock display is the example that I was using there.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
That's right. All right. I think that's all the questions, so let's go and get good seats for lightning talks.